Thank you, Brother Shaw. That's wonderful. So much there for our youth leaders to take. Brother Carson, I wanted to maybe get your thoughts on the impact that you think COVID's had at the individual level in the lives of our young people. Obviously, you've overseen a massive nation, lots and lots of youth groups and lots of individuals. How do you feel these periods of isolation, the unprecedented year that we've had, what impact do you think that's had on the young people? And maybe what takeaways can our youth leaders have in terms of preparing ministry that addresses some of those issues?
I want to dovetail real quick, if I can,
Yes.
on to something he said there.
Yeah.
Before we touch this isolation, because he said something that I think works in harmony with this. This multi-generational connection that we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
This youth and seniors, middle age and senior connection that we're seeing when the allowance happens for them to be back together. I want to really speak to every youth pastor when you get the chance to capitalize on this.
Right.
To really capitalize on this multi-generational opportunity that we're getting. Because if we are being effective as youth pastors, we are thinking about longevity.
Yeah.
If you have the opportunity to get them connected with a seasoned saint in the church that has proven themselves successful, there is never probably going to be a greater season in our lifetimes than to see this organically unfold than right now, to make sure we're doing everything. One of the things I've been encouraging young people and young adults to do is to spend time with elders, even if it's digitally, but especially when they're able to come back together, doing coffee, having breakfast, doing something, even if it's in home, however that connection can happen because of the importance. Now, I just want to touch on that because I think it's a great opportunity. It's very much a forced, almost Elisha opportunity that we're identifying. In regards to the isolation, depression has been on such a rampage. When I speak to it here in North America, the stats in North America have been staggering as a result of isolation. There's this thing we need to identify from Scripture that we often, if we're not careful, we bring them together as though they're twins, and they're not. There's a difference between solitude and isolation. Solitude is time with God. It's important. Isolation is removing oneself. It's an intentional thing. It's a detention from the body. It's the same concept of what was happening when Adam and Eve hid from God in the garden, and he comes seeking for them. A lot of times people that fight depression, they get into isolation mode. Stop coming to youth service. They stop jumping onto the Zoom call. They allow other things to mask what they're feeling. Unfortunately for us during this time, in the desire for connection, there's also some that have really, really battled the weariness of depression. One of the side effects that hasn't been even talked about a lot, but with people that have even had COVID, is the depression. I have counseled so many people that have dealt with the depression side of COVID as they experienced it as a side effect. Now take that and compound it with the need for interaction amongst a 16, 17-year-old, younger or a little older. You put them in that youth or young adult demographic. The desire is to be together. Even whether you're an introvert, extrovert, we were designed by God to be together. I told someone earlier in a session today, what is the most horrific sense of punishment in a prison? It's solitary confinement. When they decide that they are going to punish someone to the nth. And Pastor Shaw made reference to it a moment ago. Since some of our personal relational value is not able to happen, there is this real danger between gravitating out of solitude, where it's healthy time spent with God, into isolation mode, where instead of interaction with friends, it's interaction with Netflix or Sling, or interaction with some type of an online venue where we feed our flesh. And so we've watched a lot of that. Now, I will tell you that in the time of it all, a lot of Gen Zers were coming on the scene. There were so many of our youth pastors that were excited about their desire for connection. It feels like this great attack, right? That here's COVID-19 at the time where Gen Zers are coming in really wanting connection. We're starting to see this rise and this rebound, this tearing down of silos, as it were, where they can begin to connect. And so one of the things that we've had to really be intentional about when we're dealing with this isolation is to engage any student that looks like they're floundering, even if you're in a place where your restrictions are so tight, like where we have been. Thank God we're not there now. But if the restrictions are so tight where you're at that you cannot gather with anyone but immediately, you have to do everything you can to keep your students from falling through the cracks into isolation. Because isolation is very much, I believe, where condemnation is spawned, where condemnation grows. Solitude brings, if I could say it this way, solitude with God often brings conviction. Isolation is without God and often brings condemnation. So that person that feels isolated is in such a rise in mental health issues. It's why, again, ago, I dealt with an issue of another teenager who had taken their life, feeling this hopeless feeling. We know it's a lie of the enemy. So as youth leaders, we have to be extremely intentional, even if it's through a digital presence, to make sure we're honest about what they're combating mentally.